Welcome to Intentional Divorce Insights. I'm Leah Hadley, certified divorce financial analyst, accredited financial counselor, and the founder of Intentional Divorce Solutions. I'll be your guide through the complexities of divorce, finance, and emotional wellness. Join me as we uncover practical tips and empowering insights to help you navigate your divorce with clarity and intention. Welcome back to Intentional Divorce Insights. I am so happy that you are here, and I am thrilled to welcome our guest this morning. Meg Gluckman is a divorce and co-parenting coaching specialized in helping individual parents make decisions, feel more confident, and be more at ease navigating divorce, life after divorce, and all things co-parenting. She lives and co-parents her two kiddos in an awesome community just outside of Seattle. Thank you so much for being here with us, Meg.
Oh, thank you for having me on. This is super fun.
Awesome. So we are talking about an important topic today, and that is the divorce story that we tell. And I'm curious, Meg, what inspired you to want to talk about this topic?
You know, it's something that comes up with every single one of my clients. And so it's something we work on a lot, whether they're at the beginning of their divorce, whether they're stuck somewhere in the middle, the turbulent times, or whether they're even post-divorce and they're still kind of carrying their divorce with them and struggling to kind of like let it be in the past. We talk about what is the story that we want to have about our divorce. Yeah. And I think about it in three different ways. I think about the personal story that we tell ourselves about our divorce, the story we tell our kids, if you have kids, if folks have kids, and then the story that we tell our community as well, the friends and family, you know, the other parents at the soccer games, right, the teachers, you know, who we tell.
So do we have control over what other people think about our divorce?
That's a good question. Yes and no, right? I think, of course, we can never control everything that anybody else thinks about our divorce, but we have so much space to plant the seed or to give them the story that we want them to have about our divorce. And we're going to do it consciously or unconsciously. We're either going to just kind of vent about how things are going and give a story that isn't really necessarily thought out, or we can intentionally decide how we want to talk about the divorce, the restructuring of our family. And when we plant that seed, it's interesting, but mostly folks want to run with it. They want to take what we want to believe and reinforce that. And when we give them a story that works, it'll circle back to us. It'll be the story that they share with other folks in our community. It'll be the story that they share with our kids. And it makes a huge difference what that story is. And I also like to say, like, we're talking about story. I use the word story a lot. And sometimes we think about like, well, stories made up. It's not facts. And what I like to say is actually, as humans, we always communicate in stories. That's just kind of what we do. So it's not that we're telling something that's untrue or isn't factual. It's that we're choosing which facts we're focusing on, which parts of that truth that we're sharing with folks.
I appreciate that clarification because I'm guessing that a lot of people heard that word story and kind of thought that. Is there an example that you could give of a story that you helped one of your clients to create?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So let me start with the story that they told their kids, right? So this is often something that we work through. And I imagine in your work too, you are often getting folks at this point where like, oh, how am I going to tell the kids? And as a financial advisor, it might not necessarily be like, well, might not be the toolkit that you have to offer them, but I'm sure you give them a lot of pointers. I helped one client, and I've actually done this with multiple clients. And the story that I give them as the base, and then they can adapt it however feels good to them, is to be able to say to the kids, mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad weren't able to love each other like a husband and wife, or wife and wife, or dad and dad are supposed to love each other. And that's the reason that we're getting divorced. And we're sad, and we're sorry this is happening to you, and we're going to be okay. And we're always going to be your parents. I'm generally always working with parents, so that's right. We're always going to be your parents, and we love you, and we're going to work on forming a two-home family now. And the simplicity of it, right, is useful whether you're talking to a 4-year-old or whether you're talking to a 14-year-old, right? The 14-year-old might come back with many more questions. Not necessarily, I guess. We all know those 4-year-olds have a lot of questions, but different kinds of questions. And what I recommend is you just stick to your story, right? All right. I hear that you have more questions. The truth is, mom and dad weren't able to love each other the way a husband and wife are supposed to love each other. And that's why we're getting divorced. And I know you're upset, and I'm sorry. Right? And we just keep reinforcing that story. And what we're giving them is we're giving them a foundation. They're looking for something solid in this very changing, turbulent time. And by reinforcing the same story and not really changing it, we're giving that to them. We're giving them that base. Yeah.
I really appreciate the simplicity of it, because it's something that people can really confidently deliver, because there's no complexity. It's just something that you can kind of prepare yourself for and have that conversation. But why, Meg, is it so important to give our kids a divorce story?
Yeah. Because they're going to make one up no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And they're going to take our reactions. They're going to take whatever the temperature has been like in the house up to this point. They're going to make up a story about why this is happening. And as child development specialists often talk about, they most often will go to making it something about them. Right? They'll make it that somehow they were part of the cause of this divorce. And we want to be very clear that this was a mom and dad, mom and mom, parent decision. And it's because of what was going on between the two of us in our relationship as spouses, excuse me, not in our parenting relationship. That's so important. And to remember too that kids don't really get our spouse relationship. That's not what they think in. They think in our parenting relationship, right? So they're going to make a story up that's about parenting when really it is about our spousal relationship. So we want to give them a story that is simple, that they can repeat to themselves, and that they can tell other people, because we know they will tell other people. They're going to tell their little friends. They're going to tell their teacher. They're going to tell their, baseball coach, whatever, right? And we make it simple so that they can explain it too.
So, do co-parents need to agree on the story?
Good question. Of course, it would be awesome if they did. It would be so awesome. But we don't always have that option. What it really takes is one parent modeling that story, right? I think more often than not, when it's simply modeled, simply delivered, even if the co-parents are not on good communication terms, if they start hearing, or, maybe one parent shares over email, this is the story I'm going to tell Bobby, about why we're getting separated. It's a no blame story, right? And there's something very reassuring about that. So Hopefully both co-parents can take it on. But even if they can't, it is beneficial to the kids to hear it from one parent, right? Having that seed planted is beneficial, even if it's not coming from both places.
You know what else I love about the simplicity of it is it's so repeatable. Because I was just thinking to myself, when my ex-husband and I had the conversation with our children, we actually did a really good job with that conversation. We prepared for it, we sat them down together, we had the conversation. But everything after that, like for the first year, we did not have any preparation for whatsoever. And it was kind of it was a very rough first year after divorce. And we've since have now a very nice co-parenting relationship, which is awesome. But I'm just thinking if we had a simple story like that, then we could have repeated it over the course of that next year, which would have just kept things so simple for us.
I will say it does take a parent deciding that they are not going to blame the other person in the context of their communication with their child. Right? You can blame the other person for what's happening as you're talking to your therapist or as you're talking to your best friend and you are venting about how hard things are and where the other person did all this missteps. But it does take someone deciding, I'm not going to speak negatively about my other parent to the child. I'm going to do my best to help them have a positive, connected, loving relationship with the other parent because that's what's in the best interest of the child, right? And sometimes at the beginning of our divorce,
so I know you said the story could be the same whether you're talking to toddlers or you're talking to teenagers, but is there anything that you change about how you deliver to toddlers versus teenagers?
So I would stick exactly to what I just gave you as the example for the toddlers, and I would just keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, right? For the teenagers, oftentimes they're looking for who to blame. They're looking for what went wrong, or maybe they've heard something as well in conflict or just somehow through the grapevine. And just coming back to this is really a decision between mom and dad. And I'm hearing, that maybe you want to figure out who's to blame. But in the end, it really just comes down to that we weren't able to love each other the way a married couple is supposed to love each other. And that's why we're getting divorced. And it's important for you to know that this does not change either of our relationship with you. And it's okay if you're upset. And let's talk about those feelings. You don't want to have to go between two houses, right? And then the story starts really shifting back to they don't really need to dive into the why behind the divorce, right? But they're upset about the outcomes. They're upset that they're going to have to go between two schools or that they're not going to see one parent all the time or that it's really going to change up their routine with how they can see their friends. We shift it back to what it really is, which is how it affects their life.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes we think, oh, they're asking these hard questions did mom have an affair? I need to answer them and be truthful. And the reality is you don't. You don't on that. That is an adult issue. That is an adult conversation. That is between the two parents. What you need to focus on is what they need. Do they need mending in a relationship? Do they need help navigating this change of, their life routines? That's what they need.
That's such a good point. And I think we often get lost in the emotion and our own emotions of it and miss that just very basic idea there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important that we have other spaces, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a good friend, where we really can process all of that, right? A mentor of mine, Karen Bonnell, talks about how we have the spouse mind and we have the co-parenting mind, right? And we, during divorce, we're shifting between these two brains. And when we're solidly in the co-parenting mind and we're delivering this divorce story to our kids, we are thinking about what is in their best interest, what will help them have the best possible relationship with both parents. That's my focus when I'm in my co-parenting mind. So I have to like take out my spouse mind and put it on the shelf, right? And then I also need a lot of space where I can have that spouse mind on. That's again with a therapist or a coach or a best friend that I can like process all of that stuff. But
Right.
we're just starting to separate them. And it's an untangling process because while we were married, we had both brains simultaneously working all the time. And now we're separating them.
I should have started with this, Meg, because I bet there are a lot of people who are listening right now who don't even know what a parenting coach is or that a parenting coach exists.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you got into this work and what a co-parenting coach is?
Yeah. Well, I came to this work because I'm a divorced mom as well and struggled with figuring out how to co-parent, had a challenging divorce. I have 2 kids and I wish, like you were talking about the year after your divorce, or the year of your divorce, like that I had more support in going through that process as well. And I was coaching for quite a while, um, just helping folks in their life, in their relationships, in their businesses. And I just seemed to be magnetically attracting clients who were going through their own divorces. It's like they could sniff me out. They knew that I got what they were going through. So
Right.
what I do is I'm really supporting parents at any point through the divorce process around building their communication skills as co-parents, having a safe space to like talk through decisions that they need to make that they probably don't need, like they don't need to use a lawyer's time to talk through them. They want to explore all these possible different scenarios. I work with folks on helping think through like what a parenting schedule might look like. What's that going to feel like? What's it going to be like the first time that, your kids are gone for 3 nights at a time when you haven't been apart from them for, more than one night in 7 years. And so just kind of an extra guide through the divorce process and as we get into co-parenting. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you have a free download that's available on your website. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's my favorite. It's 5 questions to help you prepare for any divorce or a co-parenting meeting. What I find is that these kind of meetings can be filled with a lot of fear and anxiety and worry about like, oh my gosh, what are we going to have to decide? What am I going to commit to? What are she going to say? We're really worried about what the other person might say in the meeting. And so I develop these questions and use them with my clients to help them kind of downshift and feel much more grounded going into any meeting. So whether it's with you to talk about finances, whether it's going in with their attorney, or whether it's just meeting with their co-parent to make some decisions. These are 5 questions that I have my clients go through each time. Each time they're going to go into one of these meetings so that they can feel grounded and safe and really get the most out of the meetings. Because when we go into these meetings and we're full of anxiety and we're really worried about what might happen, we are not our most productive self, right? We can't make decisions with the most evolved part of our brain. We're kind of acting from this like animal instinct fight or flight response. So we want to be able to go in just much more grounded, much calmer, so that we can really make the best decisions for ourselves and for our kids.
Excellent. So what is your website so they can check that out?
Sure. It's just my name. It's meggluckman.com. And if you go, I'm also on Instagram, so you can find it. Same handout over there as well. And that's just at Meg Gluckman. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Do you have any final words for our listeners?
Oh, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that thinking about how you can intentionally choose your story for your kids is helpful, and that you can extrapolate it and just think about how you want to intentionally choose your story for yourself. Like the story that you tell yourself about your divorce is really, really important too. And it's a choice. We can really choose whether we paint ourselves in kind of a victim light, or that this horrible thing is happening to us, or if we are able to get to a place where we can really see how strong we are, how resourceful we are, how creative we are in figuring out this next phase of our life. So choose your stories intentionally. I love it.
Well, thank you so much again for being with us today. And thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining me on Intentional Divorce Insights. It's a privilege to share this time with you. I hope each episode offers valuable guidance to navigate your journey. If you find our content helpful, please leave a review to help others discover the benefits of intentional decision-making in divorce. Until next time, take care and continue to embrace your path with intention.